My name is Jacob Backus. I'm the Director of Community Engagement here, and I am just going to help lead the second half of this service as Jay has gone over to the 1103 to preach over there. But thank you, Jean. She has been so instrumental in gathering all of these stories for Faith Promise. So I'm very grateful for all of her efforts to do this. She gathered our speakers last week, was willing to do it today, and then got our speakers for the rest of this month. I have the privilege of introducing Hope is Alive, and I'm so excited that they are here. I've had just a little bit of experience with them. They invited me to do a dinner a few months ago in April, and I don't know if anybody was here, but I don't think I ingratiated myself all that well when, for dramatic effect, my opening line was, "Hope is dead." And everybody kind of looked at me like, oh my goodness, it was dramatic effect. Because the whole point of saying that was we've all felt in our lives like we have no hope. Like hope is dead. And the very last lines, I tried to re-ingratiate myself with the whole group by saying, hope is alive, thank God Almighty, hope is alive. And that's what we're going to learn about today. And we are going to see a video and then hear from some wonderful, wonderful speakers who are going to share their stories about how God has brought hope into their lives. So let's start by watching this video together.
I was completely just lost in myself. I don't know, I've never been so broken in my entire life.
When I was at my worst, I was completely and utterly in bondage to myself.
When I think of a drug addict, I would think of someone who was homeless, someone who pretty much slept under the bridge.
It was someone that couldn't handle their life.
Even in high school, like if I had friends who drank or used drugs, I never saw them as addicts or alcoholics. I just saw it as kids having fun. I just never really wanted to admit that I had a problem, because if I admitted I had a problem, that meant I had to stop.
You know, I didn't think I was an addict. You know, I just thought I had problems. Everybody's got problems.
Like, this is really what I thought of my drinking. I'm an alcoholic, but I don't care.
I tried several times to go to treatment, but it was really never for me. I tried for my kids. I tried for my father, because that's all I ever wanted was my father to accept me. It was never because of something that I wanted to do. It was always because of someone else.
My mother, she did some things to me when I was, like, she would smoke weed with me and blow shotguns to me when I was in the crib as a baby. You know, and after I got all this information, I realized where my life began to spiral and got twisted up, and my understanding of life got shook around and twisted. I just all tore apart.
I just sat in my own filth for 4 days, just disgusted in myself. I didn't have my ex to blame it on. I didn't have anybody to have an outlet for but myself. And I knew that if I didn't do something different than what I've always done, it wasn't gonna get better.
It was tough for me. You know, I lived in a 2-bedroom house with about 16 people, cousins, aunts, uncles, brother, sister. I really didn't have a place. It kind of stepped me into addiction and watching people use early on, and that's what was normal. It really affected my upbringing.
I met a girl from Hope is Alive at my work. And she told me a little bit, just a tiny, tiny bit about something she had. And she said that she had been sober for 7 months.
But I had no idea like what sobriety or recovery looked like at all. Like, no idea.
What's tough about maintaining sobriety is the fact that As you proceed in your recovery and you see the blessings and benefits of staying sober, people start to forget, how bad it really was. I would begin to get complacent, and I would start believing, that I was okay and that I could go on and live this life. And that would be the trap that I would fall into.
I think the hardest thing that comes with that label that society likes to place over us as addicts or alcoholics is a lot of the times that word recovery doesn't come in there. And there's so many of us that are actively seeking recovery and actively in treatment programs or actively in sober livings. But people don't want to see us as people. They want to put the label on us of what we've done instead of where we're going.
How I heard about Hope is Alive, I was in the hospital. I couldn't move for the first 3 days. And they told me about this place that was doing great things for opiate-dependent people.
I was scared to come into this program, not knowing what to expect. But the moment I walked in the doors, I was greeted with hugs, high fives, just love, genuine love. Guys that didn't want anything from me, didn't expect anything from me but to do the right thing, to get up every day and to answer the bell. And it has changed my life completely.
Being at Hope is Alive is breathtaking. I have a sense of peace. I can come home, and it's the feeling to want to come home. I don't think I've ever wanted to come home. I never felt like I've had somewhere to want to be at.
So my biggest accomplishment in HIA to this day would be having a relationship with my daughter. I went from a year of not seeing her to seeing her every other day. And that's so big. That shows me I'm exactly where God wants me to be in my life.
Since I've been here in Hope is Alive, I learned that I am something. I am somebody. I learned that success is not being wealthy. I learned that success is not having nice things. I learned success is on the inside and what you're doing in your life every single day. Back in North Carolina, I helped start the epidemic. And, now I can be part of helping the epidemic. And that is just very awesome to me.
Today, I'm a student, I'm a Christian, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm happy, and I'm free.
Today, I am full of peace and happiness. I'm radically changed from the inside out. I am living a passionate life.
What I found out during my life is Benny wanted to be accepted. And when I came to Hope is Alive, I found acceptance, and I feel loved.
Today, I'm free from my doubts. I have strength in myself. I get to enjoy life again.
I truly found self-worth in that a broken person can be restored. I found fellowship, brotherhood, trust, and hope.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bonnie White. I just want to say how grateful and blessed I am to be here at this church, to have been asked to speak is something that I couldn't even have comprehended a year ago. I just want to start. I'm from Enid, Oklahoma, a small town. I was raised by my mom, and my grandparents lived next door. And it was kind of like the unit kind of raised me. And I was an only child, so I was always very spoiled, and I was smart in school. I graduated high school and got a full ride to Northwestern, and I had these big plans to become a physician's assistant, and I was going to do everything that my family wanted me to do, and I wanted to do it too, but mainly I just wanted to make them happy. And I guess I should rewind a little bit and say that when I was 14, my father hung himself from addiction. And I had made a vow to myself that I was never going to be like him. And my mom's been in sobriety for 30 years. So I just knew I was going to be like her. I knew I wasn't going to have to struggle, and I wasn't going to have to see the ugly side of life. And looking back now, I know that like all the dreams I had for myself was really just an illusion, because I didn't really know God. I didn't know his character. I didn't know what he had in store for me. I had every plan on top of Bonnie, but what Bonnie had planned. I didn't pray. I just knew that I had it all figured out and that it was going to work out how I wanted it to work out. My junior year of college, I got pregnant with my long-term boyfriend that I had been with since right after my dad died. And I moved back home, and at this time I had been on like some prescription benzos for anxiety, and I drank a lot in college, but I didn't think I had a problem. And when I moved back home, throughout my pregnancy even, I struggled with addiction. I just couldn't seem to get through anything that was emotionally difficult for me without taking some kind of substance to get me through that. Luckily, my son was born. He was healthy, big baby. His name's Camden, and he is awesome. He's smart, and he's really the light of my life. But after I had him, paired with the postpartum depression and being still in active addiction, it really threw me into full-fledged addiction. And looking back now, that really wasn't even the tip of the iceberg of it yet, even though I thought that it was so bad. One night I was at the house, and I was by myself, and I overdosed. And the paramedics came, and they knocked the door down and took me to the hospital, and it turned out that I had taken an entire prescription of Xanax, all 90 of them. And still, though, I was like, well, I wasn't trying to do that, and I didn't think that I had a problem. But I went ahead and went to treatment to make everybody happy, and I just was so disgusted with myself at this point in my life because I hadn't graduated college. I'd become a drug addict, just like my dad. And it was so hard for my family to be around me because I used to bring such joy to them, and now all I was bringing was chaos every time. It was me, calling from jail, or, from the hospital, or the police were calling, or my son's dad was calling, talking about she's doing crazy things again. And so I went to treatment, and it wasn't long that I was back, and I had left my son's dad, and I found myself, not within maybe 3 or 4 months, I was homeless on the streets of Enid, and I was doing meth. And that really went downhill fast. I just was in places that I never had thought that I would be ever. Places with no electricity, no water, dirty, filthy places with people that I had no business being around. So I ended up going to jail 12 times while I was on meth. And my grandpa ended up dying in February of 2019. And that pretty much set me into a full-blown psychosis that I never came out of until I did decide to get sober. And I was that person that was walking in the streets of Enid, talking to herself, an embarrassment to my family, and everybody was just heartbroken. It was just something that I never planned for myself, to be that person. And I didn't see a way out. I didn't see how I was going to end up anywhere other than dead, just like my dad, or in prison. And I couldn't see a way out. Finally, after 2 years of living like that, I'd been through some pretty traumatic experiences. I got held hostage for 6 days and tortured, and I didn't think that I was going to live. And it wasn't a month later, I went to Rose Rock Recovery Center in Veneta, Oklahoma, and I was there, and a girl, she said she was at Hope is Alive, and that the faith just blew through her there. And when I started at treatment, the girls were singing Christian music, and I wasn't used to listening to Christian music. The people that I hung out with didn't listen to that. They listened to the complete opposite of that. So I started reading the Bible daily, and my counselor said, just start reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And So that's what I did. And I started taking, little suggestions from people. And I'd already been to treatment twice before, and so I was deciding that I was going to go to sober living this time because I really wanted to make a difference in my life. Like, I wanted it to be different this time. And so I went to Hope is Alive, and my family's still pretty iffy when I got out of there. This was in August of 2020. I got baptized by Lance Lang, the founder of Hope is Alive, a couple months in, and my life just started getting better. I came around in the house slowly, not sure how much to open up to people, but once I did, and it was just all out there, and I really surrendered my life to Jesus Christ. And I started to realize thanks guys. I started to realize what this scripture means when it's not me that lives, but it's Christ that lives in me. And that, no weapons formed against me shall prosper. It's not me that lives, it's Jesus. So I know that only good can come out of it. So at the end of 2020, everybody's like, this was the worst year ever. And, I'm like, this is the best year I've had ever. I'm like, this. And I'm happy to say now that 2021 is the best year that I've ever had, so that I don't sound, so crazy when I'm like, 2020, yeah. So I'm just really grateful. One thing that Hope is Alive and being sober has given me is that my son has somebody to look up to today that he can look up to, and I will lead him to great things. I don't want anything less than him, and I show that with my actions. I drug my mom on a course with me that no mother should ever have to go through with her child. And now my mom's able to sleep at night. She's able to care for Camden now, knowing that it's temporary, that Bonnie's on her way to becoming the mother that God meant for her to be. At Hope is Alive, I'm really getting to know the character of God. I'm really getting to work on those deep-seated issues within myself, like codependency and relationship issues, because I didn't always pick the best of them, by any means. And I'm just really grateful for the chance, the opportunities that I have here coming to speak to you guys. Like I said, I couldn't have fathomed a year ago. So one other thing that Hope is Alive has given me is hope for the future. Like I said, a lady came to speak a couple of weeks ago, and she works for OSU OKC, and I owe so much in student loans, I didn't think that I'd ever get back into college. And she has brought this message that God has called her to do, and she works for this foundation for social innovation there. And I applied last week, and I have my placement test next week, and my official entrance letter will be on July 2nd, but from what I'm looking at, it looks like I'm going to be in the RN program there, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited, and it's not the life that I had planned for myself, but that's because had that happened, I wouldn't have given God glory for any of it. I would have thought that it was all because of me, and I wouldn't have been able to show my son the right way to live in life, and I know what's right and wrong. I have the choice every day to live sober. Do I want to live like my mom and choose recovery today, or go the other way? And we all know what that path leads to. So I'm just really grateful to be able to be up here and tell you guys a little bit about myself, where I came from, what happened, and where I'm at now. And thanks for listening.
I'm blown away. First off, I want to recognize Bonnie and also all of those women over there. All of them are actively seeking out recovery in Jesus every day. Just like the song today, Hallelujah, you have saved me so much better this way. That hits home for a lot of us, right? I think that hits a little bit deeper. So for my story, I grew up in Northwest Oklahoma City. I have two loving parents. I've been married for 30 years, and I loved my life growing up. I was a little rebellious as a child, like most of us were, but my family life was great. I had 3 loving siblings. I went to church every Sunday. I grew up in Sunday school, went to a private school, and I still found my way into the wrong crowd. It was always attractive to me, this lifestyle, kind of like, just like the rebellious, outlawish kind of lifestyle. It was attractive to me. And so that led me to drinking. I started at 13 years old. That's when I first started drinking. And this just continued on as I got older. But it was fun, right? I grew up, this was fun. Everyone's doing it. I related alcohol a lot to success. I saw people that were successful going out with their friends, dressed up in suits, drinking on TV, it's normalized. All of these things, I was like, that's cool. I want that. And so as I got older, I continued to isolate more and more and more. I loved playing basketball. I loved going to school. I loved hanging out with friends. I was a popular kid growing up, had plenty of friends. It was very enjoyable. And all of these like earthly and material things that I was seeking after were giving me the fulfillment that I wanted at the time. As we all know, that doesn't last. And so this continued. I transferred over to a different private school called Bishop McGuinness. And so I really excelled there, actually. I loved it. There were a lot more people. I got introduced into a popular friend group and like a big friend group that we got to hang out every weekend. And, you know, we were doing all the things I wanted to do. We were drinking, smoking, having fun. And I was killing it in school and in basketball. Life was great. I was just like on the outside looking in. People were probably like, man, he's having a great time, you know. And that wasn't really the case. I was constantly seeking something. I had this hole in me that I wanted to fill so badly, and I didn't know what to fill it with. And so this ultimately led me to my senior year of high school. I graduated high school, and then that summer, not even a month later, I got my first DUI. And I went into jail, and this was kind of a warning sign for me. Not too many 18-year-olds going to jail for DUIs, and so I was like, man, there's really not a good excuse on this one to tell my parents. But the friend groups I was hanging out with were quick to reassure me, tell me everyone messes up, everyone makes a mistake, you're going to be okay, this is going to be fine. So quickly after that, I started drinking again, but it didn't just stop with the alcohol. I began using benzos, amphetamines, cocaine, horse tranquilizers even at one point, anything that I could get my hands on. And I went on to rush a fraternity at the University of Oklahoma, and this just continued to allow me to spiral out of control. Once I got up to Norman, I really had no understanding of where I was going or like what I was doing to my body. This led me to failing out of OU. After 2 semesters, my parents were so conflicted and hurt. And you know, my dad even at one point during my freshman year of college showed up to my dorm room to see if I was still alive because I wouldn't communicate back and forth with them. So ultimately, I had to move back in with my parents, and for any young adult man, moving back in with your parents after you move out is not the best idea. I don't recommend it, and it was extremely difficult for me and my family. It caused a lot of chaos, and it also caused me to isolate even further. So as I continued to isolate and do these things in darkness, that's where the enemy really got to me. So not only am I using substance, but I'm pouring the wrong things into myself up here as well. I'm being fed lies from the enemy. You're worthless. You have no security. You have no identity. You're not going to be good enough. All these things I believed wholeheartedly. I didn't know what to do or where to turn, and this led me to going to jail for the second time before I was even 21 for another alcohol-related offense. And so I'm sitting in jail in Oklahoma County, so not the best place to spend your weekend. And I really broke down. This was my rock bottom. I had realized just all the hurt that I had caused in my life, in my family's life, but I was still broken, and I had no direction. I had no relationship with Jesus, and so I got out. I went to live with my older brother, and he told me, man, if you don't do something about this, you're in for even more hurt. And I could not even fathom that. I had to reach out. So I went to treatment for 45 days in South Padre Island, and that is where I found Jesus. That is where I felt God for the first time tell me, this is the life I want you to live. Like the purpose, the identity, the security, and who I am all started to flood back. But I still wanted more. Like I wasn't done yet. You know, Jesus wasn't done with my story. And so I decided to come to Hope is Alive, and this was the turning point in my life. Treatment was the beginning, but this is where everything really took off. And so once I got into Hope is Alive, I was really kind of I don't know, one foot in, one foot out, like Bonnie was saying. And I just, after a while, I kind of broke down and was like, okay, these people aren't too crazy. I guess I can stay here. And so I stayed, and I loved it. I fell in love with it. I found my identity in Jesus Christ. Today I'm 14 months sober. And I also work for the program as well. So I'm the community outreach coordinator within the city here. And so I get to give back what was freely given to me. My family is restored. I wake up in the morning and I have purpose. I'm not dreading getting out of bed. Now some days give it, some days are okay, I need some coffee. But, Jesus has completely transformed my life in every way I could imagine and so much more. And I have this program to thank, but ultimately it boils down to what he did with my life. He has saved me so much better this way. And so that is what I have. I want to thank you guys very much for listening to my story. Thank you so much. We have one more video, and then Amy is going to come up and speak on our other ministry called Finding Hope. So if you could please turn your attention to the screen. Thank you.
Well, I am Kim, and I am a wife, mother of 2 sons. Our son is addicted to opiates, our youngest son. It wasn't until he was in his home that we began to notice that he seemed depressed. We ended up paying some bills for him, and then it spiraled into buying back things that had been stolen from us, things that had been stolen from him. Then the spiral just got deeper. He went from opiates to heroin. He lost his home. He lost his job. As his life spiraled out of control, then so did ours. We have never known such shame and loneliness and darkness. We had to call the police on him, and we cried a lot. And it felt like our tears would never stop. At the time, we felt like the only thing we could do was cry out to God for mercy. We didn't know who to go to. But that's when God led me to a couple of support groups that were really instrumental in leading me back to what I call the land of the living. These people in Finding Hope just loved us, gave us the tools to battle our journey in addiction and help us with our recovery. I could see in my own self how I was getting stronger and was able to find joy, find peace in the midst of the chaos and the turmoil. Our journey hasn't ended. My son is in a Texas prison right now. So we continue the battle, but it is with so much more peace. My hope is found in Jesus. It's not found in whether my son gets healing or not. We are being healed from this disease.
Good morning, almost afternoon now, though. My name's Amy LaRue, and I am the Finding Hope coordinator for Hope is Alive. And Jackson and Bonnie did an incredible job in sharing part of our ministry. But the mission at Hope is Alive is radically changing the lives of drug addicts, alcoholics, and those who love them. This is a family disease, and the whole family needs recovery. And that's where I come into play. In 2015, I was completely broken, hopeless, fearful, angry, and didn't know what to do. I discovered my husband was an alcoholic on our daughter's 3rd birthday. And I tried everything to fix him. He's the one with the problem. He's the one that needs to be fixed. And I'm a fixer. That's what I do. And so I went to Google. I Googled out. Nothing was working. And I got to the point where I remember calling my mom one night and just crying to her, "Mom, what do? I don't know what to do." At that time, I was a kindergarten teacher here in the great state of Oklahoma. And so, how can I be a single parent teaching in Oklahoma? She didn't know what to do. She couldn't fix my problem either. And so we just prayed together. And that's when I say, Jackson talked about his rock bottom in prison, in jail. That's when I hit my rock bottom as a loved one of an alcoholic. I knew everything I was doing to try to fix him wasn't working, that I needed to be doing something for myself. I deserved the happiness. I deserved hope and healing. But the only way I could do that was changing myself. And so a few weeks later, I found myself in my best friend's kitchen crying out to her. Only a handful of people knew what was going on in our life. And the shame and guilt that Kim talked about is so real. And Satan puts that on us. He doesn't want us to get healing for ourselves. And as I stood there, I just cried to her and I said, God's going to use this for his glory and purpose someday. And I didn't know if my husband would ever get sober or clean at that point, but I knew God would use this storm. A few months later, my husband went to treatment, and I was invited to my first Finding Hope meeting. And I'm a rule follower, so I went, but the shame and guilt really tried to keep me from there. I put on my best-looking clothes, had my hair perfect, my makeup perfect, because when I walked in those rooms, I didn't want anyone to know our family had a problem. But what I found when I walked into my first Finding Hope room was these people get it. Someone finally understands what I'm going through. I say it all the time, you don't get it unless you live it. And I know there's some of you out there right now that are living through it right now. And what I would say is, don't let the shame keep you from that. Find a safe person. Find us afterwards. I'll be out there. Because I found that I didn't have to go through this ever alone again. But what I also found in those rooms was it wasn't my fault. I blamed myself for so long that if I was a better wife, if I did this, if I did that, my husband wouldn't drink. But what I learned in the rooms of Finding Hope is it's not my fault. This is a disease. My husband would be an alcoholic whether he was married to me or somebody else. But what I also found in those rooms was hope. It took me a long time to find hope, to be honest. I saw smiles on people, and I just wanted to slap them, to be honest, because I was hurting so bad that I couldn't smile. But I have found hope. My hope first is anchored in Jesus Christ. And then I continue to find hope through these. If you have not met any of these, you need to meet them and hear their stories. They are incredible, incredible. So proud of each of you guys. And so if you're sitting out there today and you have a loved one, and you might be a parent, it might be a spouse, it might be a child, reach out. Don't do this alone. Come find me, and we will love to get you plugged in to a group. We have plenty here in Oklahoma City, Zoom. But I want to leave you with this. You're not alone. It's not your fault, and there is hope. in Jackson.
Incredible. Amy, thank you so much. Finding hope is one of my favorite things about Hope is Alive. If you haven't been plugged in or you would like to get plugged in, please talk to Amy. She is so good at what she does. I just want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart, letting us come out here and talk to you all. This would not be possible without families and loved ones like yourself supporting and listening to us, because like we all know, when we keep these things in the darkness, the enemy is going to keep a hold of it. But when we bring it out into the light and we share it with other people, that's where Jesus really gets to work. And so with that, will you guys bow your heads with me? Dear Lord, I just want to thank you for this opportunity. I want to thank you for New Covenant and all the ways that they are working and serving to glorify you, God. I thank you for Hope is Alive. I thank you for radical life change. God, I pray a hand of blessing over these women and the men back home, that you will continue to work in their lives, continue to restore them, just enable them to act out your will on a daily basis, God. I pray for this church that you will continue to just bless them in ways that we have never seen before, God. I'm coming with you with crazy faith today that you will perform some crazy things in the incoming years. And God, I just pray that you protect us as we go out today and this Sunday and into the work week, that you will just allow us to carry out your promises on a daily basis. Amen. Thank you all so much.